right now to Ms. 𝗬𝗰𝗀𝗀𝗶, the Deputy Chief of Mission and Deputy Permanent Representative to ESCAP, Embassy of India in Bangkok, and she will give us the opening remarks. Thank you very much, and over to you, Ms. Tripathi.
Thank you very much. I hope I am clearly audible. Excellencies, dear colleagues, representative from UNESCAP Secretariat and other UN bodies, distinguished panelists, other guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, ESCAP, ESBN, and UN Global Compact for convening this side event to discuss corporate sustainability. We are especially very glad that we are highlighting today the importance of small and medium enterprises embracing sustainable practices for achievement of SDGs and to get desired results out of our climate actions that we have all committed to. Mitigating climate change related risks require businesses, governments, and individuals to transform in many ways. They function, they work, they behave. A viable transition must be built on collective action, and there must be a recognition that not all of us are equally responsible for climate change, but we are differentially also affected by climate change. So these principles would have to be kept in mind when we speak of sustainable business practices. Given this context, today's discussion is a timely initiative as it reminds us that many important decisions in this regard would have to happen in the boardroom. While the governments will continue to play a very crucial role in this regard in creating, facilitating ecosystems to foster sustainability, these practices would have to be adopted and integrated into corporate strategy in a manner that is practical, deliverable, and most importantly, that doesn't compromise their commercial objectives. So small and medium enterprises represent 90% of the businesses and employ about 50% of the total population worldwide. Therefore, incorporation of sustainability in small businesses would be imperative if we need to work towards achievement of 2030 agenda. Therefore, I would again acknowledge the importance of ESCAP's initiative of Sustainable Business Network. UN Global Compact have a crucial role in generating awareness and building capacities both in private and public sector in this regard. Small and medium enterprises, coming back to it again because of its importance in the Indian context, and also I believe in the larger context of the Asia Pacific, because these companies actually form the backbone of economies in most countries in the Asia Pacific. India has is a home of over 63 million SMEs, and there are over 100 million individuals who actually work in those SMEs. It contributes 35% of our GDP and 45% of our export. Therefore, integration of responsible businesses, whenever we talk about it in Indian context, and I believe in the context of larger Asia Pacific also, we have to factor in the special requirements of the small and medium enterprises. Coming back to India, we have taken few measures, which I just want to highlight, that the SEBI mandated business responsibility and sustainability reporting for top 1,000 listed companies in India. It furthers the case of a resilient and ESG compliant supply chain. For the corporates, small, micro, and medium enterprises form a large part of this value chain. While currently ESG reporting is a voluntary thing for SMEs in India, however, SMEs are increasingly linked with the global and regional supply chains and are also integrating with the global value chains. Therefore, embracing sustainability in many dimensions is critical for them to gain and retain the competitive edge. SMEs face multiple challenges in implementing ESG policies due to lack of resources, knowledge, and technology. Adapting to the new demands from vendors could be daunting for many such businesses. Investment required to transition to sustainable practices, especially adapting to cleaner technologies, enhancing worker well-being, etc., sometimes can be prohibitive in terms of the cost that is required. So governments are helping wherever they can. There are few initiatives to help MSMEs to adopt sustainable practices in India, which one of them is zero defect, zero effect practices. We call it that it encompasses a lot of things, including reduction of wastage, enhance environmental consciousness, energy saving, optimal use of natural resources, etc. Digitization is being adopted and being facilitated in a big way for the SMEs. Government of India and UNIDO, they are jointly implementing a project called Promoting Market Transformation for Energy Efficiency in Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises to develop a market environment by introducing energy efficient technologies and to address identified barriers for scaling up energy efficiency measures. So these are few of the examples that I just thought I should share from the Indian context. When it comes to reporting, sometimes for the MSMEs, it becomes an additional burden. So maybe by introducing simpler and standardized ESG disclosure and certification, streamlining reporting standards, by providing guidance, incentives, and supports, MSMEs can be helped to embrace ESGs as driver for growth and innovation and as a factor of competitive advantage. In the global scale, when it comes to the discussion about climate change and climate action, India has been highlighting the need for climate action that is rooted in equity, climate justice, and differentiated responsibilities. We have emphasized the importance of supporting the efforts of India has been pushing for a clear roadmap for climate finance to support developing countries in their sustainable transitions, focusing both on mitigation and adaptation. We need collaborative frameworks for this. There are organizations even within Asia Pacific, like APCTT, which is a body under the UNESCAP, which can be engaged more intensively for such purposes. Coming back to the Asia Pacific context, fostering corporate sustainability is therefore intrinsically linked with the global strategy to adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change. It is especially true for this region as it is home for a large number of small island developing states, the LDCs and the LNDCs that are worst affected by climate change but lack resources, knowledge, and technology to drive transition towards sustainability. We need to empower governments, businesses in these countries in their sustainability efforts. With these words, I would like to wish everyone that we have a very fruitful and enriching discussion today and unpack the many different aspects of this fascinating topic. And thank you very much once again, the organizers, for giving me the opportunity to share our thoughts and perspectives. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks, Ms. Tripathi, and thank you for the support of the Embassy of India in opening this meeting. For the next session, we have a roundtable discussion, and I'm sure we'll have some very wide-ranging and interesting discussion with all our participants here. So I won't take up any more time. I'll pass directly to Mr. 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 who is the Executive Director of the UN Global Compact Network in Malaysia and Brunei, to moderate the session. Over to you, Feroz.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very formal looking room, but no, I think after so many days of events at the commission, let's make this a more, in Malaysia, we call it chillax, right? Chill and relax, right? We just want to share our insights on a very important topic. I think at the offset, we definitely like to thank our colleagues from ESPN for organizing this together with us. I think it's a very important topic. And as we heard in the opening remarks, SMEs play a critical role in especially in the developing economies. And sometimes they may be a little bit left behind in the ESG and sustainability agenda, right? But it also shows that there's a common responsibility that corporate supply chain actors must also play together to push this. So This roundtable, we have a diverse range of panelists. I don't know, are you panelists? Are you? I'm not sure what you call roundtable participants. I don't know what is official contributors, right? With diverse views and diverse experience and background. And I think we are in for a treat to be able to learn from their experience on this important topic. So the structure is very simple. We'll start off the roundtable with opening intervention by every contributor, 5 minutes. Perhaps you like take the opportunity to share a little bit about your organizations and your view on this. And in the end, I will follow up with some questions. And also, I think we may have some time for some questions on the floor. So the roundtable will be 1 hour. As a moderator, my job is the simplest one. I just let you all talk and and ask you the questions. So those listening in, please, you have about 45 minutes to think of difficult questions, right, on this. So please join me, and very briefly, I'll just introduce our contributors. We have my good friend, Ms. 𝗦𝗀𝘀𝗀𝗶cie who is the co-founder and chief product officer of Virtual Tech Frontier. We have Mr. 𝗦𝗀𝘀𝘀𝗶cie Hashim, who is the CEO of the Hornbill Networks Consortium. We have Ms. 𝗦𝗀𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Ms. Helen Lee, co-founder of Go Impact. We have Mr. Vikas Jain, COO of Funding Societies and Model Co Group. We have Ms. Janet Salem, co-founder of the Footprint Lab. And I'm not sure if Dr. 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗶 is here. Well, it's online. So Dr. 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀, who is the Senior Vice President Sustainability, 𝗘𝗰𝒨𝗨 Asset Management Company Limited. So with that, maybe we'll go ladies first. We'll go this way. Angeline, if I could invite you to start off with your intervention and sharing. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Farouz. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angeline, and I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Virtual Tech Frontier. We are a leading immersive technology startup in Southeast Asia region and focusing on basically any technology that enhance human engagement and learning. So maybe just backtrack a little bit. Before I start this company, I actually used to be a sustainability consultant, and during my stint as a consultant, I advised like quite a number of companies and government agencies ranging from the technology, built environment, and also like agriculture. And also during my stint as a consultant, I also served as an associate under United Nations Global Compact Network under Mr. Farouz. So back then, we also come a lot like very meaningful framework, assessment, and toolkit to particularly help like encourage SMEs how they can kickstart their ESG initiatives in a easier manner. So so back to now, like previously I was more on the advisory side, but now I'm more on the operation side, like looking at like the entire business as a person that managed product. I always like think of like ESG as part of the consideration when it comes to like product innovations. So for example, like our company, we introduced like a metaverse platform that is free for everybody. Metaverse is actually a very expensive thing to develop, but we make it available and it's a full solution for everybody. And there's a lot of application. Such as like we did pilot study with the Ministry of Education Malaysia with the public schools. Instead of like the kids using mind maps, like the traditional methods like mind maps or like presentation slides to present their learning topic, they use metaverse as a medium for them to like present a learning topic. And we do realize that through that metaverse creation process, it helps them to learn the topic better. And that kind of promotes like quality education as well. And also on the commercial side, for example, we also have a client which is one of the biggest insurance company in Japan. They right now start to use metaverse gamification to teach people what is the importance of having insurance as well. So so that's just a little bit about myself and the company and how we think about sustainability. But probably later I will share a little bit more about like maybe challenges as a SME and how we mitigate those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Angeline. Anissa?
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. My name is 𝗤𝗎𝗻. I'm the CEO and also Managing Director of Common Networks Consortium. So we are actually a company that is actually a construction and property development company that's building affordable, environmental, sustainable homes. So what we do is that I actually brought my partner here. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Nicholas Bowden. That's our partner for the collection of plastics, because right now we're also in the midst of actually trying to incorporate the plastic recycling in terms of our built environment. We are not as exciting as Angeline. Okay, in the construction industry, is a very boring type of industry, but it actually contributes a lot to the carbon emissions. We're talking about 40% here. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to reduce the carbon emissions that we actually incorporate in building the houses that we do for our folks back home in East Malaysia, that's in Kuching, Sarawak. So I think that's pretty much in terms of our journey. We actually started the company in 2019. So just before the COVID pandemic. So we're actually quite hard hit also, and I think everybody knows in regards to the inflation and all that. Plus with a lot of plastic pollution over the past few years, especially during the COVID pandemic. So it's actually quite an alarming situation, especially during the World Earth Day. The theme is what? Planet versus plastic, which is quite an opportune thing that what we're trying to do. So we'll discuss further about our journey in regards to the ESG impact, especially in terms of the study. So I'll pass it back to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Helen, would you like to go next?
Thank you so much, Farouz. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you very much. I think Ms. Tripathi framed the discussion very nicely in terms of the importance of not leaving behind the SMEs. At United Nations, I believe that, we say the SDGs is to leave no one behind, but it's in a way easier said than done. People have all different capacities, different resources available. And my firm, Go Impact, which I found also in 2019, end of 2019, early 2020. So we were thrusted into COVID. And what the ethos of the company, I had a long career in banking before that, was really to build on learning, but executive education that you can enable change makers, enable executives to really make a difference and to have that common baseline of knowledge that will be essential if you want to take action. An uninformed or less informed investor is not going to invest heavily. A less informed executive is not as able to make, well thought out executive decisions. So fast forward to now, we operate in about 7 partner channels across Asia Pacific. And we also do the mandatory training for one of the large stock exchanges in Southeast Asia. And they roll out a mandatory training for all the publicly listed companies' board directors, which I think is actually a good, brave initiative. These are people making important decisions day in and day out. But on the SME level, as we've just heard, they make up for the lion's share, over 90% of GDP, employing over 60% of the world's workforce. And yet, these are people for whom sustainability, reporting, disclosure, other initiatives could be a burden, quote unquote. So how do people, all the brilliant, minds and brilliant executives sitting in the room today, how do we bridge that public-private sector collaboration, the PPP, to help them move along? Beyond just the advocacy and education, which my firm, works very hard on, I believe they need tools. Okay, very often it's not the lack of belief, maybe some, but I need help. I need tools. I cannot afford to invest in onboarding a new team of sustainability officers and all that. I don't have that resources. It will eat into my P&L. And as an MSME, even the larger SMEs, the bottom line is so important for them. So I think we need to look at tools. We need to look at education in a more practical, pragmatic manner. People don't need to just look at theoretical issues or frameworks. Beyond that, how do we actually help to drive action? So I do believe that the intersection of green, fin, and tech, green finance and technology will be the sweet spot whereby action can really be driven. So maybe let me just pause there. There are probably a few other sharing that we've done. The intersection of green, fin, and tech, incidentally, is the theme of a research benchmark study that my firm has done, apart from all the learning and advocacy in the past 3 years. So very happy to share more information if that is of interest. Thank you, Feroz.
Thank you. Green, fin, and tech. Very nice. We can invite Vikas for your intervention.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we are not founding societies, it's a typo. We are funding societies. We are the largest SME digital financing platform in Southeast Asia. We have so far funded more than $3 billion in loans across more than 100,000 SMEs in 5 markets in Southeast Asia. Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So these are the 5 markets we are presenting. We are backed by banks. So we still consider ourselves a startup, though we have been around for 9 years. We have VCs, we have banks who are backing us in terms of shareholders. We primarily are focused to serve the underserved SMEs. So we provide financing to SMEs who are either not able to get funding from banks or traditional financial institutions, or they are not able to get enough to meet their growth needs. So if you look at our business, we are dealing with SMEs on a daily basis. And we've been hearing, right? They are so important to the economy. They are so important to the social systems, right? Because they give jobs and so on. But they struggle on a day-to-day basis. So when we are talking to them, we even find that they do not have time to do accounting. They do not have time to manage their cash flows. They do not even have time to collect their money from their customers, right? And then if we try to impose ESG related aspects on them, reporting or being more sustainable, it's quite difficult for them. So we ourselves are fairly new in the ESG space. So we only started looking towards it and realized that we can play a very important part around 3 to 4 years back. And we have implemented it as part of our risk assessment of the SME. So what we do is something called an ESMS. I think some of you might be familiar with it. So environmental and social management system. And as part of that, we assess the environmental and social risk in the business of the SME who comes with an application to apply for a loan with us. And more often than not, we try to nudge them towards becoming more compliant or starting to report. And we have seen that many of them, are hearing these things for the first time. So when you ask them some of these things, they say, hey, we've never been asked these things. What is this about? So based on that learning, we actually started doing also workshops for them to educate them about these aspects. We work with partners, Stacks in 𝗔𝘰 to help them in terms of easier disclosures. We work with partners like ADB and Temasek to come up with more reports to educate them about these things. And so far, we have seen them very receptive. But what we always find that they lack time and resources to do it. So that's what is something we are working on towards.
Thank you, Vikas. Janet?
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for the invite. It's actually nice to be back here because I've worked at the UN for 17 years, including 10 years here, but with the UN Environment Programme. But I left to start a company that supports this topic. And thanks, Benjamin, for inviting me to talk. So I wanted to give some perspective of how I think about it coming from the UN and then trying to bring together a solution. Here we have a product and a service that are more green than their competitors. But how's anyone going to know? You know, how's Helen going to be able to assess them? How's Benjamin going to be able to point clients towards them? And then how's Vickers going to invest in them? Maybe, I don't know. How many billions did you say? 3.5. Okay. So the gap that I really wanted to solve that was bothering me is where's the data? Everyone says, where's the data? And as you know, in the UN, and if the statistics division were here, they'd say, oh, we've got trillions of numbers. We know we have lots of numbers about SDGs. So I started a company called Footprint Lab to work with the universities that are providing that data and to help convert that data into formats that are easy to integrate into financial transaction data. So if we look at virtual tech or hornbill networks, and if we could get, if their banks could enrich all of their transactions with carbon data or water footprint or material footprint, SDG 8 and 12, then they would be able to have a carbon footprint measure based on their transactions without spending a cent and without having to hire expensive consultancies that would drain your budget away from sustainability and, you know, probably soak up the sustainability expertise in the world, which is a very scarce resource. So what we need to do is make the sustainability expertise automatic by working like Benjamin's solution, like working through Benjamin's solution with the money and helping guide the money to invest in things that are greener, and then helping your supply chain, your target markets find you in compared to the others. So the ESG disclosure policies from the governments are the right step because they're requiring this, which gives SMEs or larger companies the requirement to disclose, and banks have to disclose first. So when they give a loan or when, you know, they give a mortgage to a household that gets one of your sustainable houses, they could get it. The bank will then have that in their financed emissions. Very nice for the bank to have a lower financed emission for your clients. So these ESG disclosure policies are very, very important. Every country should have them. And then to support it, we need to work with the academics that are providing the data to the UN to get that data into the financial system so that our accounting tech, ESG tech can automatically, cheaply do it for you in a way that we all agree and it's auditable and everything. My prediction is that in 3 years, every transaction will have an average carbon footprint number, and we're working on that. We're data as a service. And then in 5 years, it'll be at the company level. So if Hornbill comes up in our ledger, we'll have a specific number for Hornbill rather than just buildings. And in 10 years, it will be at the product level. So every component will have a carbon footprint. And that data needs to go through ESGpedia and similar things. And then there's a lot of AI that can be done with that. But my role is, I guess, bridging from academia into this so that it gets in the ladder. I wanted to just also say that Asia Pacific is well placed for this. We could take the lead. Why? Because Singapore is doing its part, providing that global policy leadership, putting money and support into green fintech to make this easy for companies. So good policy leadership. Australia, I'd say, has really, really good carbon and sustainability data. So Australian institutions are providing that data to the SDG statistics portfolios. And then India is doing the tech for the global financial system. So we need to talk with Infosys, with HCL Tech, with all those tech companies that are building the pathways and the pipes through which all this financial data flows. So I think we can engage member states to target some of the sectors that they have that global potential, transformative potential. Not to mention the manufacturing, where we can sort of work with suppliers to get the data in. Yeah, so I'll leave it there. I know I've spoken a lot, but thanks again and looking forward to hearing the discussion.
Thank you, Janet. And finally, if I can invite our last contributor, Prapong, who is joining us. Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be able to join this session, and sorry that I cannot make it in person. At the moment, I'm currently head of sustainability office at 𝗘𝗰𝗶𝗃 Asset Management, which is an investment management arm of 𝗘𝗰𝗶𝗃 Bank. 𝗘𝗰𝗶𝗃 Bank is a small, it's a medium-sized bank headquartered in Bangkok, Thailand. So I believe that I can offer my views from a banking or financial sector perspective. Of course, standard disclaimer applies that this is my view and doesn't represent my employer's view. For me, driving sustainability is all about creating incentive mechanisms, both carrots and sticks. I listened to Janet previously, and I'm sorry to say that not all banks are looking to lower finance emissions, at least from Thailand's perspective. Because I'm looking to have lower emissions yet. Why? Because there is credit cost involved with lower finance emissions. So we need some incentive in order for us to move toward a greener portfolio. I agree that data would be a gap, and I believe that collaborations like this would help us fill in that gap. So I think I'm going to pause here, and I look forward to hearing thoughts from other participants and share my thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warapong. Apologies, we have Ms. Malchutar as well for her intervention. Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Jasmine 𝗦𝗀𝘀𝗀𝗶 from Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand. I'm so delighted to share with you regarding to our the power of the collaboration between the public and private sector in driving a positive change. As Helen mentioned, it's definitely left no one behind, and the SMEs needs that. As EGAT, we are the state-owned enterprise under the Ministry of Energy. We are the single buyer for electricity as a wholesale to distribution, PA and MEA. Since then, we have driving the main goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. We believe that the global company is needed for strengthen the SME in Southeast Asia, especially for Thailand, as our main economic is a supply chain for a global company. So by strengthening those SME to accelerate to more clean energy and reduce the carbon emission from their operation, that could help the global company to reduce their emission on scope 3 as well. So we are working with today Mr. 𝗤𝗀𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 also as well here for the 𝗘𝗰𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Smart City at 𝗘𝗰𝗀𝗀 provinces. So at 𝗘𝗰𝗀, we work together in 3 aspects, which is a smart environment, smart living, and also smart energy. So EGAT, we are sharing the knowledge of the new energy and also new technology, including hydrogen, solar rooftop installation. But we couldn't make it change if we don't have a tech company such as Stack that can traceable, accountable, and also reporting to the global standard. So we're working with Stacks to measure and also to compare those SME for the previous year and the next year coming to improve their sustainability and also give them more energy efficient accessible. So thank you very much for having me today. I'm looking forward to collaborate with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So we've come to the end for our intervention part. So now we can ask the questions. I don't know. I'm thinking, should I stick to the script or should I? Never mind. Since the team spent a lot of time on the questions, I'll probably stick to the script for a while before we go off track. So I just like to what do you call this? Post the first set of questions to the SMEs who is part of the roundtable, and those perhaps funding societies, because you work with a lot of SMEs, right? What have been the key challenges that you've encountered in navigating the evolving sustainability landscape, and how do you envision the role of digital platforms to overcome these challenges? If I could ask short, concise responses, maybe 2-3 minutes each max, please.
Okay, probably I can share first. So I do see there's a lot of challenges when it comes to like SME trying to like kickstart their sustainability journeys, because to them just like what Helen mentioned, it's perceived as like a burden, and also just like what Vikas mentioned, also they don't even have time to like collect money, let alone like try to understand, right, like what exactly it is about, like all the jargons, and also probably lack of manpower, hence like they just couldn't really start. But I do realize that sometimes it's also because we don't really speak the same language. They need to really understand why is it so important to look into ESG when it comes to as part of their business strategy, because sorry. So for example, right, if you look at business strategy, it's always like it's either revenue generation or cost reduction. So how can we relate all this, like the direct and indirect drivers of revenue generations and cost reduction, that is back to like the materiality topic, that actually is relevant to them, and that is easier for them to understand. Even I understand that there's like also a lot of like workshops and like toolkits around. That is also a very good thing to kickstart their sustainability journey. Try to understand where is their position. But very often also after the workshop, there's always a lot of dropouts. Like you don't really see them continue, like looking into that. So I still believe that the core is lack of the understanding that actually sustainability is not something that is extra for your company, but it's part of your business. So I just give an example, right? Let's say if it's a cost reduction category, you have like supply chain management. So how can you manage your supply chain better? Such as like if let's say you're a manufacturing company, and probably you want to source somewhere that is like nearer to you, and that eventually it reduce the GHG emission. But unfortunately they just do not know whatever that they are really doing is part of the ESG initiatives, and how do they report that? That is also a challenge. So I think what the foundation, which like for example UNGC has laid out, such as the ESG hub, providing assessments for SMEs to understand, where are they lacking, what is the gap between them and the peers, is definitely a very good start. But in order to push them further, as much as I will also see in Malaysia, for example, Bursa or like banks, they said if you don't try like start report on your ESG, then you probably will have to unfortunately bear with like the financial risk, such as like higher interest rate. But to me, they will think that like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'll get punishments, right? So it's not on like a different perspective. It's like, oh, I should do this because it's good for my business. It's not to prevent from like getting punishment, for example. So this is like basically that like I would like to share. But of course there's like more things, but I would like to keep it short. Thank you.
Don't worry, I'm sure you got more time to come back to that. Harizal?
Yeah, okay. From the perspective of SME, small, medium enterprise, back in East Malaysia, the region, we are quite blessed in terms of actually having a lot of this clean energy. We're talking about hydropower, hydrogen and all that, and solar. So the thing that we actually encountered the most actually in terms of problems with regards to the ESG is actually the awareness. I'm talking about as far as the awareness is concerned is with regards to my other partners. the awareness of the staff, and sometimes the awareness of the bank officers. Sometimes when we talk, I was talking to my partner just now. We actually had a problem where previously we talked to a few of the bank officers with regards to the financing. They couldn't even understand what ESG is all about, and this is at the regional level. Okay, this is in Malaysia, so that's a big issue. Awareness with the staff. Practically, I have to basically hammer that into their head about ESG, because it's quite one of the main things, that the reason why we actually started the company. We wanted to change the way things are being done. That's why we started the company in 2019, to actually construct buildings in a different way. Coming from East Malaysia, from Sarawak, there's not many people actually wanted to do the same thing that what I wanted to do. So we're considered quite the few people that's actually pioneering this in Sarawak. And so far, most of my other developer friends are trying to try to replicate what we're trying to do. So we hope that we can actually just be a catalyst for change. But I would say that probably the awareness. Having the ESG hub, that was also quite beneficial, because actually ESG hub was, of course, promoted by UNGC MYB. It's actually also being adopted by the Sarawak government in collaboration with, I would say later on, Lions Bank here, Roy, because they actually nudge the Sarawak SMEs to actually, in order for them to get preferred financing, they actually have to go with the ESG hub assessment. So it's quite good, because some of the other partners, like for example, like our developer friends, they haven't heard anything at all about ESG, and they consider that as a cost. So I would say that probably it goes back in terms of what we believe in. Okay, and that's what we see from our own perspective.
Thank you, Anizam. Vikas?
So I'll not delve much into the day-to-day struggles of SME. I think we all know, right? But how we can nudge them, right, to be more aware and to be able to adopt some of the practices that we want them to adopt, right? And I completely agree with Angeline. I think she mentioned about rewards. Yeah, rewards is one way, but I think reward not just for the SME, but also for the companies, the employees, as well as the companies themselves, right? So let's talk about the SME first. So for us, by adopting the environmental and social risk in our risk assessment process, what we have tried to do is, one, eliminate businesses which are contributing to these risks, humongously as part of their business itself. So we adopt IFC and EDFI exclusion lists, which clearly mandate the kind of businesses we should not be supporting. That's one level. The second level comes in where, let's say the business itself is fine, yeah, but some of the practices are probably not compliant. So in such cases, typically we would give them a conditional approval of the loan and say, hey, you fix this, you'll get the loan, right? So they also understand that there's something that they need to fix. The third would come in where it will take time, right? Some of the things they can't just overnight become compliant or can't fix, right? So it will probably take a few months or maybe a year. And then we do give them a loan, but with the condition that if you want to take more funding from us in future, then next time you come to us, you need to be compliant, right? So they know that this will help them get more financing. And where it makes a difference, see, for larger SME, it doesn't make a difference. They are not going to do what we want them to do because they have options. Like we mentioned, right? Some banks or traditional financial institutions still might fund them without having these requirements. So they would say, okay, sorry, I don't need your loan. I'll just go somewhere else, right? But we actually fund some of the SMEs who are looking for $50 or $100 or $500, right? They have no options, right? And they more often than not would try to get the things that we want them to do to get that funding. And that's where we have seen that we have been able to make a tangible difference. But what we also need to understand that we are in a business of risk. So many of these really micro businesses, also high risk businesses, because they have limited data. their financials are not in order. I mean, you look at their financials, you won't be able to make anything out of it. They themselves can't answer most of your questions. Most of these are cash-based business, right? So there's nothing much in the bank account if they have a bank account. So when it comes to assessing them, it becomes difficult. And the money that we are giving them, right, we are also taking a risk on that. So that's where I think there is, there are initiatives in Singapore and Malaysia wherein there's a Enterprise Singapore has a guarantee program, a risk sharing program. So does Malaysia. CGC has a risk sharing program. And these programs actually help us to actually fund these SMEs who are potentially slightly higher risk, but also nudge them towards being adopting more of these practices that we want to. And such, such support, whether it is from government or from regulators, can be extremely useful for the financial system to push for some of these things that we want to do.
Sorry, because in just interest of time,
yes.
just quickly wrap up for the next questions.
Okay,
yeah.
Maybe just last one point. And the third part, which I think 𝗬𝗰𝗀𝗀 was also mentioning, was about educating the employees, the front end folks, right? So we have been doing a lot of training. In fact, ESG is one of our regular topics in our town hall as well, where we talk to our team members about the importance of this and how, when they talk to the clients or the SMEs, how they should be asking certain questions to understand them better and nudging them towards these. So beyond the workshops, we're also doing a lot of these for our internal teams.
Thank you, Vikas. So the next question I would like to pose to Ms. Malshuta and Dr. Warapong. I think you are representing the corporate demographic in this roundtable, and I'm sure you've done many kind of partnerships in your roles. If I could just ask, if you could share successful examples of partnerships or collaborations between the public and maybe even corporate and SMEs, right, in driving sustainability efforts in supply chains and SMEs, right? Perhaps, would you like to go first, and then we'll pass it to Doctor? Yeah.
Sure. So I think the good example of the collaboration is in this room. So it start now. So we need to act now. We need to walk the talk. So the stage that we can share the idea of how we driving or supporting the SME is very important. We share the idea, but also we have to do the implementation. So EGAT also have share and speak to all the partners, and we make it happen. So we have the initiative with 𝗘𝗂𝘀𝗀 Smart City, and we want to grow that. By doing so, we need to create an ecosystem for them. It's not just one time that you install their solar rooftop and done. It's not that. If not, there's not sustainability for the society. So we need to create an ecosystem that to make it run for the first stage, and phase 2, they can do by themselves. We have to teach, we have to share the knowledge and expertise from us. And after that, we create an ecosystem, for example, for solar rooftop, in not just to reduce their cost of electricity or access to clean energy, but also we can use, for example, a renewable energy certificate or carbon credit. This is a economic mechanism or the finance mechanism tools to generate more revenues to them. We aggregate them from the small solar rooftop and can register, and those rates we can sell and purchase to the big government that they need to access to clean energy or to achieve their carbon neutrality goals. After that, that money can be processed back, get back to the community, can install to the school that lack of access to clean energy, generate more education and good living for the society. So this kind of ecosystem that we need. So I think that this is a good example, and hopefully that we can implement those good example to another city or the area as well.
Comments?
Yes, I totally agree with Kun Malshuta that it's much beyond financing. It has to do as an ecosystem change. For example, changes start from our customers. So we need to bring awareness about ESG to our customers. when they have ESG preferences, that's where incentives begin. For example, for our bank customer, we have lots of real estate customers for the banking, and we have an initiative with the Bank of Thailand to do ESG Academy. We start talking with them about sustainability practices, sustainable building materials, for example, and also reporting. So it's much more financing decision. It's about education, bringing awareness to customers, and making changes in preferences. So totally agree that we have to do it as an ecosystem.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, so there's about 10 minutes left. So the next question is for Helen and Janet, because I think it's part of your work. You're looking very much into trends and a lot of research, right? So if I could seek your opinion in the light of the evolving sustainability landscape, what are the emerging trends that you foresee in the intersection of green, fin, and tech, and for SMEs and sustainability in the Asia Pacific region? And how do you think SMEs can adapt to these trends to stay ahead in their sustainability efforts? Okay.
The first trend I see is from the top, so policy. Even the Minister of Finance of India said she wanted the incredible fintech community in India to become green fintechs, to take on that role of integrating environmental data into their service offering. So I think the ministers of finance are starting to get involved, and there's a coalition of finance ministers for climate change, which I think is quite an interesting entry point. So the policy, then the response of the market. Once you need to measure ESG, how does the market respond? So the fintechs that we support, especially the ESG fintechs, a lot of them are 𝗘𝗰𝗶𝗃, EY, and it's young people in their 20s, I would say early 30s, who they have so much skill and they want to get into ESG tech, super popular. So that's another trend. Major driver at the moment is financed emissions. So being able to access a loan, a home loan, it's now coming with requirements for disclosure. So it's not only SMEs or companies that need to disclose because there's a government policy. Now they need to disclose in order to access finance. And then there's a different carbon calculator every week that is trying to offer an AI powered, so this is where we need to harness sort of the AI capacity, but the more granular data that we can sort of put into the system, the more there can be like a personalized advice to SMEs or individuals about what they can do, and maybe sort of directing them to more sustainable suppliers. So I don't know how do you get visibility as a greener SME? Is it do you have to, is that value proposition kind of getting across? Are you able to access sustainable procurement? I used to work here we used to try to do a lot of sustainable procurement as the UN. How do you find the green suppliers? So this is why we need this concentration of data, getting more and more granular, and the SMEs that are getting into that earlier, I hope will benefit from greater access to market. Yeah.
Thank you, Janet. Helen?
Yes, thank you so much. I think that question is quite interesting in the sense that there are multiple trends working. We keep saying it's a poly-crisis world, which makes it very complicated to tackle. Because if you look at the World Risk Report, all the top 10 risks, the majority of them are climate related, and they're all highly correlated. So one has a knock-on effect onto the other. You cannot look at these risks in isolation. They all compound together. So I see it through our learning work, and we do a lot of work with 𝗦𝗀𝘀 Malaysia, for instance. There's a convergence of a top down and a bottom up. And I think to be effective, you need both. I was talking to the chief sustainability officer of a very large global conglomerate, remain nameless for now. But they say there are three approaches that could be effective. The first one is a marketing communications approach. So you do advocacy, you promote it, you have a lot of effective messaging and all that. Okay, there's research behind it, but it's still a MarCom driven approach. Secondly, you have a compliance reporting, disclosure, the stake. You have to report on this, otherwise you are not compliant. As long as you are listed on my exchange, you have no choice. This is mandated. So that's the stake. Okay, one is the beauty, beautifying, okay, gloss it all up. One is the stick, okay, and the most effective, she said, is the chairman and CEO approach, which is also the most difficult, because if the chairman and CEO can adopt it, then it will be cascaded into compliance, into regulatory, into marketing communications, into all the frontline business functions that actually drive the revenue. Very frequently, we see a dichotomy in that sustainability is a standalone thing. It's a cost center. Nobody likes a cost center, and your share of voice in an organization is simply not the same as if you are a revenue generating business line. So I think we probably need a bit of mindset shift in that. And those are some of the top down and bottom up trends that we're seeing. Of course, the bottom up is there's tons of work that, UN is doing, UNGC is doing, 𝗦𝗂𝘀 is, trying to bridge that funding gap, with the SMEs and MSMEs as well. So I do think I see a confluence, a convergence of that top down and bottom up.
Thank you, Helen. I do believe we have a little bit of time if anybody has any pressing question from the floor for the. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick from Malaysia. We produce smart AI-driven reverse vending machines to collect back containers, and we collect a lot of data. So the idea is that we collect ESG data for corporates so that they can use that for reporting on 𝗦𝗀𝘀 Malaysia and elsewhere. I think the one thing that I haven't heard in this discussion is two words, which might be the missing puzzle for SMEs, is circular economy. Now, the circular economy is really what brings all of this together, because if you are speaking to an SME and you can make them understand that by adopting a circular economy approach as your basic business model, this then means that there are opportunities to embrace ESG, to be able to impact on your balance sheet, to make more money from embracing ESG. What we see in Malaysia, and we deal with hundreds of different companies and governments, is that ESG really has replaced CSR in the sense, and there's a very poor understanding of the difference between the two. So I always use the example of cleaning the beach, taking your company to clean the beach. By the time you leave, the plastics wash back onto the beach, right? And it's kind of become the dirty word, if I might say.
Yeah. So again, just for
sorry.
time.
So how do we? The question I would say is, how do we draw this line of circular economy into the discussion in order to have a better sell for SMEs to embrace ESG more? Sorry.
So maybe I can just open this up to the roundtable contributors. Anybody would like to share an intervention on the circular economy comment? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And circular economy was meant to be this multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. So I hope you're telling us that you're a unicorn now. But the reality is very difficult. But I would say one of the indicators that we have that is also an official SDG indicator, but no one's interested in it as yet, is the material footprint. So we know the material footprint per dollar of every sector in every country. And it would be kind of cool if you could show that the circular economy businesses can reduce material footprints. And I just wish that it were on a dashboard, I guess, that for people who can influence this. Curious of your experience.
Right. Okay, so I would just like to close this session by giving each of the contributors 15 to 30 seconds to perhaps share one wish list, because you got some heavy hitters in the room here. You know, you got Esther from Capital Land, and you got 𝗘𝗰𝗶𝗃 sitting quietly at the back. Right? Sorry. I CDL. I'm sorry. CDL. Non-Singaporean, so I'm forgiven. You know, what would be your wish list to put out to the stakeholders out here to accelerate the SME journey towards becoming more sustainable, right? Angeline, we'll leave the last to you because you started two already. Maybe we'll go this way here. Helen, what's it?
Thank you. I would sum it up with 3 C's. Okay, they all just happen to begin with letter C. The first one is capacity building in the best sense of the word. It has to be practical learning. Okay, it's not just theoretical. It has to be fact-based, expert-led, and use case-based. Okay. The second C is, loosely speaking, a collaboration, but collaboration in the sense that there are channels for people to work on. There are projects for people to work on. If it's just collaboration, no one would disagree with that. But where do we start? How do we collaborate?
We just keep it short because time is ticking.
Yes, of course. Yes. And the last C, communication. Very often we think that people understood what we say, but they may or may not.
Thank you, Helen. Vikas.
Okay, I'll keep it short. More support and incentive from government and regulators for smaller financial institutions who are willing to do the work, but may not, we are not profitable yet. Yeah, we are a startup and we are still investing a lot in it. So if we get more support, then we can go the extra mile in ensuring that our clients are also more adopting more of the sustainability practices.
Thank you, Vikas. Janet.
My wish list would be to introduce a carbon price so that you convert the climate risk into a climate liability, and to make it easier on SMEs. So you're not just adding a new, maybe reduce labor tax, convert it to climate tax.
Thank you, Janet. Dr. Wadapong.
I also would like to see more governmental support, because if the market mechanism works, it would have happened already, but it doesn't. So we need some intervention from the government.
Thank you, Dr. Wadapong. Ms. Malchuta.
I think that I wish to have a support mechanism that to drive more.
For the wish list, I'm looking at the tax incentive and also financial incentive, because we are talking about tax from the government. The financial incentive is actually from the banks, because we need both for the micro SMEs and small SMEs like us. So that's what we are looking at.
So Angeline, to wrap us up, the reason why I gave her last, because those who finish have to also buy us dinner later on. So Angeline, to finish it up.
Okay, so as also one of the SMEs representatives, I think my wish list would be, I see there's like so many very good initiatives trying to like put all the puzzle pieces together, but it's still very fragmented right now. Like as an SME, like we do not have the time to think about which organization that we should go for, like when it comes to like this. So if there's like more collaborations between different organizations to put something together that to tell SME this is like the way to go, I think that will be very, very helpful for SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you, Angeline. So I think it's been a very enriching, interesting discussion. We are just 1 minute above time, which is not too bad, right? So if I can just quickly summarize, I think, there are some common themes that came across. I think to accelerate the SME agenda, we need to look at the infrastructure. We have to look at the financing approach. We have to look at the data for evidence driven the decision making. We have to look at talent, right? And I think most importantly is, can sustainability be a self-value, as you said, from a chairman and CEO perspective to push this. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please do join me for a round of applause for our panelists, for contributors for their insightful sharing today. Benjamin, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that enlightening session. I'm not going to take up any more time in the interests of keeping us on track. So next I pass over to Mr. Benjamin So, the Managing Director of Stacks, one of our ESBN members.
Thanks very much, Chairman, and it's a pleasure to meet everyone. So very excited, and it was very insightful to hear from everybody. This gives me the feeling that I'm in a room of the Avengers, because we literally have a lot of superheroes from different backgrounds. We have people from the government sector, international organizations. We have, tech, education, and financial services providers. We even have unicorn, as somebody wearing a unicorn shirt. Yeah. So I think most interestingly, I think we do have a lot of common alignment and agreement on, the various principles. And I think our role here, because as the other Benjamin has already explained, we are part of the ESBN, which is the 𝗬𝗃 Sustainable Business Network. All right. So at the 𝗬𝗃 Sustainable Business Network, or ESBN, we have produced a Green Deal for Business program, which is centered on supporting businesses. Businesses face a lot of challenges today. I mean, if you look at the regulations that have been implemented for sustainability, it is actually spilling over all the way from the different markets into Asia. And that is, again, we keep hearing this word knock-on effect. It is going to impact on profitability. So much so that today we are already starting to see sustainable companies are profitable. And to be profitable, there's really no choice. You have to be sustainable. So I think we are in APEC. 𝗬𝗃 is the Economic Social Commission for Asia Pacific. All right. So APEC has its challenges, but also APEC has its opportunities. We are the supply chain for the rest of the world. Right? Most people, when they eat or drink or consume or wear anything, it will ultimately be produced from somewhere in APEC. So I think with the Green Deal, the opportunity therefore is that we have been encouraging companies to get started. The Green Deal program also includes a digital platform. And that's where I come in. All right. So my full-time role is actually as a founder of the company called Stacks. And we produce a platform called 𝗬𝗃pedia. Right, so 𝗬𝗃pedia is facilitating the Green Deal. We are providing a full GHG calculator, for example. That includes your carbon intensity, Scope 1 and 2 emissions, ISO methodology, GHG protocol, all of it fit to local emission factors in different APEC countries. So that actually is provided, to all the members, all the companies that want to be part of the Green Deal. One thing about 𝗬𝗃pedia, the name sounds like Wikipedia, right? And Wikipedia is great, right? One good thing about Wikipedia, the most important thing is it is free. So similarly, 𝗬𝗃pedia is going to offer the same kind of some services. Whatever I just described, GHG calculator for the SMEs beginning on their journey, Scope 1 and 2 calculation, local emission factors, all these are provided for free. But what does this mean? Because free is not enough, right? We do also want to be able to allow companies to understand when they start to be on the program, they also get to qualify for the ESBN Green or Silver or Gold badge. And this means that we are trying to move sustainability beyond just compliance, right? So all these data points, of course, are comfortable to international standards, regulatory reports. Different countries have different standards. Ultimately, we can support all of them. But the more important thing is that moving beyond compliance, when these data points, when these badges get the access for the companies into a better business network, into a better business profile, into better procurement, and of course, even we have already supported many financial transactions, for example, sustainability linked loan with an interest rate discount. That's where companies have already started to benefit. Of course, for some of the larger corporates here, you are business leaders of the world. You would also be able to benefit from having those data, produced by the SMEs. And I agree with Janet's assessment. Maybe I think it's actually I'm a bit more optimistic than you. I actually don't think it's going to be taking 10 years, but a few years from now, such data will be easily accessible to larger corporates who need to perform their reporting. Of course, I think I said enough. Okay, there are a lot of positive outcomes, and to be able to establish, okay, or to be able to share with you more, I think it's better that I let some of our Green Deal achievers share more. And that we actually have a video. Okay, it's already on YouTube anyway, so you can view it anytime. But we're going to play it right now. It's only going to take 5 minutes. The road to net zero is only attainable with collective effort and data-driven solutions.
Declared the intention to drive its mission toward energy security and ECAT carbon neutrality by 2050. This not only benefits ECAT but also our partner as we collectively access our performance across 5 key pillars, facilitating a comprehensive self-evaluation process.
Disclosing ESG data through a digital platform like 𝗖𝗰𝗶𝗶𝗃 lowers the barrier to sustainability as it provides a structured overview of what ESG topics are relevant for disclosure.
Previously, we had to work on manual checklists as well as experience from professional consultants externally engaged. With the platform now, it's made it a lot easier for our corporate sustainability and ESG reporting journey.
It allowed us to understand data being generated and actually allowed for other people within the company to access that data as well. I'm very excited about is when we can have subsidiary companies and investee companies overseas start to engage with the platform.
Our ESG reporting is a manual process that lacks real-time insights, causing delays in consolidating monthly reports for a fleet of around 200 vehicles. It enables us to track vehicle emissions and benchmark them against recommended industry standards, providing immediate insights into emissions data.
Entering data into 𝗖𝗰𝗶𝗃 has given us more insight into our ability to monitor and engage into the current emissions we are working on, and also help us to position ourselves to leverage into all the ESG opportunities in the region.
We adopt the GRI standards for reporting, and Stacks happen to have this option on the 𝗖𝗰𝗶𝗃 platform.
We found the guidance notes that were provided in the framework itself being extremely helpful. It allowed our middle managers who are working on the ground to be able to put in the data points necessary in a very quick and complete fashion, allowing us to gain better visibility. We have gotten invitations to speak on sustainability efforts within the Bali hospitality landscape.
With the entries, it allows us to monitor our emission factors, and the system helps in manage emissions in my country, Thailand.
The key benefit is being able to benchmark ourselves against peers. We want to be a leader in terms of the sustainable production of food, and with that, we should be able to meet our 2050 goal, carbon net zero in Thailand.
There is also the benefit of reducing human error, makes the data calculation process a lot more efficient. There's the privacy and or confidentiality option, whereby you can choose who you want to show or present the data to, whether it be the financial institutions like banks or stakeholders that you would want to disclose your sustainability data to.
It allows us to communicate with our clients, partners, and employees about our unwavering commitment towards ESG efforts.
Achieving the ESBN Green Deal badge strengthens our competitiveness and credibility in the market. We have an understanding of the disclosure requirements and insight that will help us when encouraging the SMEs in our ecosystem to disclose ESG data.
This achievement marks just the beginning of our journey. ECAT, in collaboration with 𝗖𝗰𝗶𝗃 and our partner, to establish a solid, robust ESG ecosystem.
It signifies the commencement of our journey towards ESG excellence, reinforcing our seriousness about reducing emissions. This carbon emission certification recognizes our carbon reduction efforts, which we believe can help position companies like ours favorably for potential financing opportunities.
I would like to encourage that every businesses, especially the ones who do not have the huge or vast amount of resources yet, in terms of team or budget or skills even, to use the 𝗖𝗰𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 platform in order to simplify their sustainability reporting and data collection process faster.
Sustainability leads to profitability. 𝗤𝗔pedia Nexus helps businesses embark on sustainability and leverage ESG opportunities in the global supply chain. With our ESG reporting tool and suite of actionable solutions, 𝗤𝗔pedia Nexus powerful synergy and marketplace of key partners across ASEAN enables businesses, regardless of their ESG maturities, towards net zero. Join us now on data-driven sustainability for a greener Asia.
As you can see, there is already a lot of examples. So we really do want to invite everybody to use the platform, use the tool, be it when and I will do so right now with one line, which is okay, thanks. And actually, I just want to wrap up right now to say that, in the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2015, Obama said this line, which is, we are the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, and we are the last generation to do something about it. So we really want to welcome everybody to collaborate, especially starting from the people in the room, okay, to work together to try to bring these positive effects in the network effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Okay, our next presenter will be Mr. Roy Hyong, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Innovation at Alliance Bank Malaysia. And he'll be giving us a case study of Alliance Bank's digital climate assessment tool and inclusive financing initiatives for SMEs in Malaysia. Please, I give the floor to Mr. Roy Hyong.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Today, I just want to share a little bit about the program that we have. A little bit before that about Alliance Bank. So my name is Roy. I handle strategic partnerships and innovation. One of the things that we do is working with our clients to enable them to overcome whatever challenges that they face, especially in SME sector, which is a big part of our portfolio. Amongst other things, obviously, as we hear in this room, ESG and sustainability is one of those things that they have to go through, but yet they may not be best equipped for it. That is the reason why we then curated and built this sustainability impact program. As a bank, we have done about 12 billion in new sustainable business over the past 36 to 24 months. That's a growing portfolio, but this program really focuses on beyond financing, right? So this program really talks about what pieces we need to put together so that they actually have a journey, right? For SMEs who want to get there, it is not that they refuse to do so, but it's just that they don't have the structured way and essentially the help that they need to get there. So with that, I'm quite far away. I hope maybe the lady could help me to go to the next slide. All right, so our sustainability impact program focuses on 3 areas. We call them the 3 A's. Advocacy is a big part of it. In summary, the why, right? So we are focusing on getting the SMEs to understand why they need to do so, why it's important, and more importantly, not so much from a compliance standpoint, but how it is going to help them to be more competitive, how is going to help them to get more revenue, and essentially differentiate themselves from their competitors. So that's a big part of that that we do. The second part of that is advisory, and in that we run capacity building sessions through partnerships that we work with. We also created, and I'll go a little bit into that. We also created a digital climate assessment tool. We call it Progress with 𝗤𝗰𝗆𝗃𝗏𝗏. And that's something that we are very happy to roll out to all our clients, as well as the ecosystems that we come into engagement with. And you'll see that in some of the slides ahead. The answers really is, now that I know why I need to do it, what I need to do, how do I actually execute it? And that comes with our wide panel of not only green tech solutions, but green tech solutions, but other type of solutions that help and enable the SMEs to take the next step. And the requisite financing, we call it a inclusive financing program that we run to ensure that the SMEs have the funding that they need to execute some of these activities. Now, if I go to the next slide. Just a little bit more as to the partnerships ecosystem that we create. So the key point here is that we cannot do it alone as a bank. We need collaborations, but as I believe one of the speakers also said, the collaboration also need to have a purpose. It needs to have a business purpose. In this case, the SMEs have a business purpose and driver to actually improve in their sustainability actions. But it also needs some specific agendas, right? So I don't have time to go through every one of those lines, but the one that we'll focus on today is the one with 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗶𝗰. And that is really providing a tool that can scale to provide climate assessment as much as possible to the ecosystem of SMEs that need it. And to be fair, in my experience, it is not every SME in Malaysia that needs it. There are SMEs who are a bit more pressing because of the industries they're in. There are SMEs who are a bit more pressing because they are big suppliers of corporates who then need to do that reporting, and so on and so forth it goes. So essentially, it's like a funnel down. It is not a one-size-fits-all where you boil the ocean and you go talk to, 1 million SMEs at one time, right? And you see that approach clearly in the next slide. So next. Next slide, please. Try to. So we signed sorry, the slide before. So we signed a 3-year exclusive partnership with 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗶𝗃. Essentially, it covers those areas, and the reason we do that is because we need to work with someone who actually knows what they're doing in this space, right? And we know how to finance, but there are many other things that we don't know how to do that well, right? And so we rely on our valued partners to provide that kind of expertise. And the answer is, why do we do that? Is so that the end result is something tangible. The end result is something that's of quality that can actually have impact. Next slide. So in terms of thought leadership, inclusive financing, capacity building, and essentially engaging the ecosystem. These are the 4 areas that this program covers. We call it Impact 26. In the next few slides, we'll just go into 2 of the things that are starred down there, which is the climate assessment and a sustainable supply chain program. Next, please. So this is quite a busy slide, but in short, how do we execute? One of the key ways we execute is really to look at those that need it the most. So we work with corporates and their supply chain and their suppliers. So in this program, this particular instance, it is corporate driven down. So that means that there is attention from the SMEs who are participating. So when we run it, then we run it at ground level. We hold workshops, we hold events. So it's not so much like a national event and you just give a talk, but we actually have workshops and guide them through a half-day session, going through climate assessments, having them go through proper capacity building. And essentially what that does is that it provides them the understanding that they need to improve because their peers are in the same group and they are supplying to this corporate, and the corporate, who is their customer and probably the most important voice for their business, is telling them to do it. So that is one way where it can be effective rather than it's just a message and then everyone goes home, right, without doing anything. So out of the many things that we provide, one of the things is also a financing incentive for those that improve, right? And I just want to go to the next slide a bit. So companies who go through our progress climate assessment, they actually will get a simple climate readiness report and essentially a recommendation on transition and action plan, right? So it's very specific to the companies. They answer, it's basically a desktop where they answer 35 questions. They get a sense of where they are and they get clear actions, what they need to do to improve, or they can do to improve. It's not mandated at this point in time. So this solves one problem. Where am I? Once people have a baseline, you want to improve. If you are C, you always want to get to B. If you are B plus, you want to get to A minus, right? That is how we live our lives, even from young as a student. So now it translates into, the business. And when there's benchmarking and you can see the guy next to you is better than you in a little bit of these areas, these are suppliers, they're supplying to the same guy, right? So now competition comes up. So this kind of builds that kind of thing of how, action can be taken. Okay, next. It's based on ISO methodology, CCPT, so we didn't come up with anything on this on our own. So it's well grounded and they know that what they're doing is the right thing. Next. It is very simple. It takes less than 10 minutes. There's another important part. It needs to be very practical and simple. Anything that takes time and effort that is too much for the SMEs will fail, right, at this point in time, right? So we purposely made it simplistic. Maybe it's not that deep, but at least it moves them in the right direction, right? And there's an incentive. So as you go to the next slide, we actually build in. So just now you can see that there are levels to, if you take the assessment, you will end up in either 1, 2, 3 or 1 to 5, right? That's the scale, right? Laggard to leader. What we've done is a very simple, it's not sustainability linked as in like the large corporates, but essentially we reprice our SME loan, or we provide them a better rate for the SME lending if and when they improve on their climate actions and their maturity improves, right? For us, it's very simple. This is credit, right? Suppliers who are more sustainable in this supply chain will have a competitive advantage over those that don't, because the corporates want them to do so. Therefore, by reason, their credit over time will be better, right? And with that, we can price, because loan pricing is all about credit risk, right? And so that's how we impute it into it. So it's not like something we just cooked up. There is actually a basis for why we want to do reductions. Okay, next. Coming to the end, these are just examples of the type of sessions that we have run. So again, these are all ground-based, and the type of financing that we have approved to date based on just this program. One important aspect also is not green financing per se. There are some green loans in there, but it actually, this reduction in pricing, because they improve their climate actions, will also include their working capital. So that's why it's inclusive. It's not only green, right? And that is another important aspect to the SME side. If I don't want to spend the money on green, can I still take advantage of the program? And the answer is yes, right? You can use it for your normal working capital. Next, please. And the final slide, just a case study of an actual result that we ran with a corporate. We call 𝗦𝗀, they are a developer. They ran a sustainability workshop for us. Over 2 days, actually, half day. And essentially, we ended up with financing some of their suppliers. These are the one that is public, so it can be shown, right? And many others that we have not, of course, got their consent. But essentially, we wanted to just share that it works if it is structured and it is done in a specific way to achieve this purpose. So thank you for that time. I've taken a little bit more. Now, hopefully that was okay. Thank you for allowing me the time to share this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heong, for that presentation. In fact, the timing, I think, works out quite well, because now we've left 10 minutes for questions, which I think is probably a good amount of time. I would like to open the floor, both people within the room and also people online, for any questions directed to any of the panelists we've had today, or just more generally, thoughts. Please, we have a mic ready to go around the room. First, I see Janice Mellon.
Yeah, I have a question for Roy and for Benjamin. When SMEs have gone through your processes and now they have some external review of their sustainability and maybe even the badge or some level of improvement, have you seen any evidence that they're able to access the market, or they're able to access deals with some sort of preference? Is ESG giving them a differentiator? And I was also wondering, because Benjamin, you're so closely linked to the government, do you see any link with enabling their sustainable public procurement policy? Like, can they access ESGpedia to find the more sustainable vendors to support them in sustainable public procurement?
Yep, the short answer is yes. Okay, so firstly, I mean, this is not exclusive to ESGpedia. I think it's the same for all technology platforms and, you know, all vendors out there. So essentially, we have already seen several use cases, at least in our ecosystem, where banks are providing sustainability-linked financing loan discount, so preferential rates. Okay, which I also saw just now on the Alliance Bank presentation, where there are preferential rates that will quantify it to be real ROI savings. So immediately there's a return, right? Even if they are SME. Okay, so this has really been quite publicized in several countries already, okay, in the banking sector. Okay, and of course, when it comes to the government's role, I think we live in a era right now where all the governments in the region have already started to set their own targets. You know, spillover effect of 2015 Paris Agreement is that governments have to meet their 2030 or 2050 targets, and that's where governments are setting some policies. So I come from Singapore. You know, the Singapore government has set, be it Enterprise SG or the IMDA, has really set both of them grants to allow companies to be able to tap on these services with a grant, okay, to be able to offlay any type of investment. Okay, but besides that, okay, it also means that, okay, this grant is not just for the SMEs. The grant is for the SMEs, yes, but this grant is also targeted at the larger corporates. Okay, and these larger corporates would actually be advocating for the SMEs. These larger corporates will therefore be more resilient, okay, towards climate change and the regulations. And most importantly, these corporates will therefore prioritize the procurement from those suppliers who qualify. Yeah, Roy?
So the program that we run, the Sustainability Impact Program, I guess is more specific. So the answer to your question is yes, but in these three ways. Number one is we initiate a lot of it through the corporate, in short, the corporate procurement team, right? So in many ways, it is a benchmarking that is happening. Different corporates will have different levels of how they mandate, right? But basically there is a level of differentiating the suppliers. The second part is, as Alliance Bank, we want them to be more sustainable and take climate actions. We shown that by basically providing preferential rates. Lastly, one of the methodologies down there that the whole program is based on is our Malaysia's taxonomy, the climate change principle base, right? So what that means is that it will help them to have a better rating in that taxonomy scale, and by that definition, over time, have better access to financing from banks in Malaysia, not only Alliance Bank.
Okay, thank you. I know we have one question from Ms. Esther. Actually, I just want to also check, is there anyone sitting behind me who wants the floor? I can't speak to the microphone and look around at the same time. Okay, all right. Ms. Esther, please.
Thanks, Ben. Not so much question, but a real business case that as a corporate, okay, I'm from CDL for us, is a developer and also landlord. We operate in 29 countries and regions, and we have adopted ESG for the longest time, 20 over years now. And I would like to, encourage the SME that big corporates are actually helping the SME. Not just because we want to save the world together, that is important, but there is a strong business case because sustainability reporting is important, it's mandatory. If we don't have the data from our supplier, we won't be able to report, credible data. So that's why we actually, and I'm really happy to hear Roy, to talk about the preferential rate. And in fact, I launched the first green bond in Singapore in 2017. At that time, the pricing was not exactly, encouraging at all, but it was not more expensive. But over the last 2 years, the table has turned. Now the banks actually asking to see CSO like us. Last time they I don't know them and all. But it's like at COP last year, I just launched the 1.5 degree sustainability linked loan, better rate, and also pack our performance that we committed to SBTI, reduction target to the interest rate. So we really channel funds to green action. And we are actually planning to launch just now. I think that gentleman talked about ESG Enterprise Singapore in Singapore, I suppose, right? So we are actually working with, in partnership, like, you get, it's also talking about as corporate, we are offering as a 𝗦𝗶𝗶𝗃, we offer my top 100 over supply chain SME to work with ESG, benefit from 70% grant, to work with a team of consultants and a tech firm and trainer, including, of course, our friend here, Benjamin, to help the SME walk into their office to help them build the database and the platform, carbon data first, because that is scope 3 that we have to report from next year onwards under ISSB, the scope 3 reporting standard. And then, of course, we also brought in a bank to offer preferential rate if the SME need to, apply for green loan. As 𝗦𝗶𝗃, we also offer guidance to them how they can actually tap onto the fast growing green financing to help them green their production, green their product. They have the data, I have the data. They lower their carbon footprint, it helped me as well. So it's like a win-win, So I think this is something that, it's a real case. It's not about theory, because when you talk to SME, they look at the survival, very important. All they want to tell me is like, you just tell me how you can keep me on your panel for procurement. Don't screen me out. So that is what we want to do.
Okay, with that, everyone, I think we're sort of reaching the end of our time for this this meeting, and we're fairly constrained in terms of the resourcing here in the conference centre. So I think with that, we'll wrap up. Forrest, would you like to make any final statements?
As most of the time, usually people who sit together in a room, we all the converts, right? Is how do we go out to advocate to others? In my experience, actually, SMEs, although people always say that they're perhaps one of the more difficult constituents to come on board, but I don't believe that, because for them, the question is very simple: what's in it for us? So the question is, who takes that responsibility to answer that what's in it for us, right? So that's why when we collaborated with Alliance, for example, we came with a very clear mindset is that incentive ecosystem has to be there. It not means it just becomes another exercise, right? But this can only be built through multi-stakeholder partnerships, right? And one thing I've come to realize is, while we talk about climate actions from a state actor perspective of common but differentiated responsibility, I think that same mantra and philosophy must also enter into supply chains. That we cannot expect SMEs to behave like corporates, and neither can we expect corporates to behave like SMEs as well. So each has its own responsibility, but it must be common towards a common vision. So that's my final words on this, Benjamin. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Could everyone please join me in giving a round of applause to all our discussants and contributors today? Okay, lastly, thanks everyone for attending. I think we're going to try to take a group photo. So shall we go at this? Okay, so please, could everyone make their way to the screen end of the